Hello everyone and happy Friday. Welcome to the Mylio Photos coffee break. My name is Angela and today we're going to be talking about face tagging. We're going to go through all of the basics and I'm going to share some of the tips and tricks I've learned over the years to make this process fun and easy. Before we dive into today's topic, I want to go ahead and let you know about some of the other events we have going on for you. If you haven't joined before, we have live Q&As every Tuesday and Thursday at 11:30 a.m. These are informal sessions where you can drop in, ask questions. They are a meeting style, so you can just unmute, ask your questions, and anything Mylio Photos related is on the table. So if you have questions about editing, organization, family history, all of those things, come and join. It doesn't matter if your questions are, you're a very new user and you're just getting to know Mylio, or you've been with us for a long time and are a power user and have a more technical question. Everybody is welcome. So I hope to see you at those sessions. Like I said, 11:30 a.m. Pacific on Tuesdays and Thursdays. On Fridays, we hold these sessions called coffee breaks, which are short tutorials followed up by more time for questions, either on the day's topic or anything else you might have questions on. And next week, we're going to be talking about everything you need to know in the info panel. There is a ton of information. When you click that little I button on the sidebar in Mylio, there's so much information there about each image or each selection that you have. We're going to go through bit by bit everything you can find in that info panel, what it does, why it's important. So it's going to be just a really good general information session. I hope you'll be able to join me. With that, let's go ahead and dive into face tagging and talk about some best practices and time savers. This is a really fun segment because, in my opinion, face tagging is one of the most fun things to do in Mylio Photos. It's kind of the biggest bang for your buck as far as the time you spend and what you get out of it. The reason we do this is because we want to be able to go in and find the people that we want very quickly. A lot of us remember individual photos based on who was there, and by tagging faces in photos, that makes them really, really easy to find. So today what we're going to cover is how to access face tagging and use it in all the different areas of your library, because you don't have to be in specifically people view to use it. We'll talk about the AI facial recognition in Mylio, a bit about how it works, and we'll talk about batch tagging faces so you can have Mylio group together similar faces and move through your collection very, very quickly. We'll also go into a little bit more of the nitty-gritty, some of the settings you can do to fine-tune the facial recognition. We'll talk a little bit about consistent naming practices so your library stays organized. Having a system and staying consistent, you'll notice, is kind of a recurring theme in a lot of the things I talk about with photo organization, and naming people is definitely a part of that. We'll also go over how to ignore unwanted faces and how to handle people in your library that you don't necessarily, you maybe want to remember their name, but you don't want to see them pop up in people view. We'll go a little bit into that as well. And then finally, once you've done all this work, how to quickly find those people when you need to find those pictures. So let's go ahead and dive into why face tagging matters. And this one, I think you guys pretty much know. We've already covered a little bit about this, but it helps us find the pictures of the people who are the most important to us and makes it really easy to search and organize efficiently. It also ties into the storytelling, especially when you're working with things from your family history. There are people in photos that I have that I don't personally know, I never personally met, but I can see the family resemblance there, and I can tell the stories, see the stories in those pictures because I know who they are and I can see what they were doing, and I can learn about my family's past and the people who came before me, what they were like, why I am the way I am. All of that is part of that story that's told, and having the name of that person, how they relate to you, is so, so incredibly important. And overall, it just makes your library smarter over time. And that's part of the AI in Mylio Photos and in the facial recognition. So the way that this works is Mylio does use AI to help identify faces. What it does is it goes in and it recognizes different regions of the face. And there's a lot of really technical stuff that goes on underneath the hood to make connections between which faces are the same and not. And it does a really tremendous job of recognizing people over the years of their life. Now, it can struggle with little tiny children, babies especially babies that are siblings, or sometimes in families, even generationally, the babies look very, very similar. AI can really struggle with that. But once somebody gets older and develops some really unique facial features, from about the age of 3 to 5 on through life, Mylio does a remarkable job of recognizing that same person. For instance, in my library, I have one of my grandmothers who's still living. She's 98 years old, and I have pictures in my library from when she was a little girl. And Mylio does an amazing job. It's not always perfect, but does a really good job of picking out her facial features from the time she was about 5 years old on up to this point in her life. So that to me is really, really spectacular. When Mylio does the facial recognition is part of the dynamic indexing that happens when you import your media. So each time Mylio is bringing in new media, it's doing a whole bunch of things that we call dynamic indexing. And one of those is scanning for recognizable faces. So it's looking at each individual photo and looking for something that looks like a face. When that happens, if you turn on face tagging, you're going to see a little circle around that face, and that'll indicate that Mylio has detected there's a person in this image. Just like anything AI related, these are based on confidence scores. They are not perfect, but they do learn from your input. And much like smart tags in Mylio Photos where it has object recognition, there is a confidence score and slider in the settings, which we'll talk about a little bit later, that you can adjust to get more results, which typically are going to be a little bit less accurate, or fewer results that are more accurate. So it is based on that confidence. You're in control. Mylio's AI, much like every other AI thing in Mylio, runs locally on your computer. It makes suggestions, and then you get to confirm. So nothing AI related in Mylio is making any kind of change to your media. Whether it's a face tag, whether it's an AI smart tag, those are suggestions. You can then confirm to have those saved into your metadata, but that only happens with your confirmation. So you have full control. All right. So when you're ready to get into tagging faces, one of the things I love is you can do this from anywhere. And by anywhere, I mean, if you've got a device with you that has Mylio, you can tag from your phone, from your tablet, or if you're sitting at home at your computer. Any of those devices allow you to do face tagging. And you can do it from any view inside of Mylio Photos. You don't have to be in the people view. What you do is in the very right sidebar, you'll see this little icon that has a person on it. And this is when you have an individual image open and selected. Turn this on. If there's a person in that image that Mylio has recognized, you'll see a circle around their face. It'll either say that it's already been named, so if you've tagged that person in the past, it'll tell you who it is. Or you have the option to go ahead and tag that person on the fly. That's just one way of tagging people. So as you're going through and browsing or culling and you see an image and you're like, oh, I haven't tagged this one, click on that little icon and you can go ahead and add those faces. Or as you're browsing, you want to see, who was that? I'm trying to remember who was at this particular party or event or whatever. Click on that face tagging option. Anybody who's named in your image is going to pop up and it'll show you everyone who's in that picture. Likewise, if you find those little circles to be distracting, click this icon again in the sidebar. It will hide those circles. So you can turn those on and off as you like. All right. When you get started tagging people, if you've never done this before, what you're going to do is you're going to head to the people view, and there is an untagged category. So any face, as Mylio scanned those pictures coming into your library, any face that it's recognized, it's going to be put into this untagged category. And if you are brand new and you've never tagged anybody before, when you go to the people view, it's automatically going to put you into that particular grouping. So you're just going to see a bunch of untagged faces. But if you've been using Mylio for a little while and you've tagged a few people, what you're going to find here at the very top corner is your untagged grouping. So I can go ahead and click on that, and that's going to zoom in on all of the faces that I have yet to tag in my library, and I can go ahead and start tagging here. So there are a few different ways you can do this. You can do a one-off, click on that little question mark, choose a name from the list, or type in a name and name that person. In this instance, I have a bunch of images here which are the same person. I can select all of those. So what I did was I clicked the first one, held down my shift key, click the last one, and I can name that person just once. I don't have to necessarily go one by one by one. So I can click on this and type in Allison Conklin, and that's going to go ahead and add her name. And I can go ahead and I can add a category here. She's another photographer that I've had the privilege of meeting, and so I can say, put that in work and apply and create, and I've now tagged all of those pictures of Allison. And that's how easy it is to go through your untagged category. I like to go in here and kind of just browse and see if there are any that I can kind of quickly and easily grab and just tag a few one at a time. However, if you have thousands upon thousands of images, this can get a little bit tedious, especially when you start looking, you've got many, many, many images to tag. So let's go ahead and jump back over to the presentation and talk a little bit about speeding this up. That's where batch face tagging comes in, because Mylio, once you've named somebody and you've tagged them 4 or 5 times, Mylio gets smart. It starts to recognize those similar faces and will group together pictures that have those similar facial features. Again, it's up to you to go ahead and confirm this. It doesn't tag them automatically, but this lets you go through and move through pictures very, very quickly. When you launch batch face tagging, it does respect whatever view you're in. So if I go back here to Mylio and I start from inside a specific folder, if I go over here to my folders view and I choose, let's say, my Instagram folder, and I want to face tag in this folder, if I launch batch face tagging here from the left sidebar, click on Tools, Batch Face Tagging, it's only going to let me see the faces that are in this particular folder that need to be tagged. If you want to cast a wider net, I like to start from All Photos view. This takes all of my pictures in my entire library, and then I can batch them together. So again, click that Tools, Batch Face Tagging, and it's going to go ahead and pull up anything. Now I've gone through it and I've already done a lot of the easy groups in my library. So right now it's recognizing this as one of my aunts. I think that's her. I can always double click on one of these pictures and zoom in and see and confirm that that's her. And if I believe that both of these pictures that are exactly her, I can say approve. If I know that this is not her, I can say reject. It'll just come back up in the list and it'll still be a face that I can tag. It's just not going to say that it's her. If this is somebody that I'm like, oh, you know what, I don't know this person, or this person wasn't an important fixture in my life, I say ignore, or I can skip it and revisit this later. Now, I can go here into my miscellaneous as well, and I can go through the individual pictures and tag individual people. And again, this works very much like that untagged category, where I can select multiple faces and tag those people like so. So that is really a great way to go through and speed up that process in your tagging. And so you can assign names to groups of people in seconds. And I will say that this works on tablets and it works on computers. Because of the small screen size on a phone, batch face tagging is not available on smartphones. You can tag individual faces. Everything else that I've talked about so far can be done on a phone. Batch tagging has to be done on a tablet or on a computer screen. All right, so your face recognition settings, the defaults I find usually work really, really well. But if you're not getting the results that you're expecting, you can go in and adjust these to make it work better for you. So those are under the settings. You go up to the More menu. We'll show you this here in just a second. Advanced and face recognition. And again, this is where we go into the sensitivity settings of the AI. You can get high confidence matches with more accuracy. The default is kind of a good mix, or get more proposals that are, probably going to include some false positives. And you can adjust these based on your own comfort level. So let's show you where that is. I'm going to go here into the More menu in the upper right. We're going to go into Settings, and we're going to go into Advanced. Up here at the top, there's a section for face recognition. First off, if you don't want to tag people in your library, you can turn this off. Another thing is face recognition does eat up a lot of resources. And if other things are going slow in your library, let's say you're importing photos and you just need to get to those photos, you don't want it to do face tagging right now, you can turn this off. It will stop looking for faces and speed up other things that it's doing. I don't recommend doing that on a regular basis, but if you're in a particular hurry for something, that can help speed up other things. So that's just one thing to know. If you turn it off, make sure you turn it back on. You can also restrict face detection on battery. Like I said, it is a pretty resource hungry operation. So if you're on a phone and your battery level's running low, you might want to turn that off. And that way, when you're on a battery only device, whether that's your laptop running on battery only or your phone or your tablet, it's not looking for those faces actively. Auto tagging is kind of controversial. I would suggest leaving this off. It is off by default. And the reason that we do that is it doesn't work the way a lot of people expect it to. Auto tagging will show, if it'll take a picture that it thinks is somebody, it'll show it in their collection. And people often think that that means that it's actually tagged, meaning there's a tag put into the metadata and that information travels with it. But when something is auto tagged, it is not saved in metadata. That is just part of the Mylio catalog. And so honestly, it causes a lot of confusion. People don't really understand how it works. So I recommend leaving that off. I think most people have a better experience not using it, but you can experiment and see how it works in your library if you like. I just wanted to address that that setting was there, but I prefer to leave that off. Moving on down here to the face recognition proposals, this is your AI sensitivity setting. So I like to keep it at the default. You can just go ahead and click default there. It'll put it at 80, which is definitely on the more accurate side. But the higher up you drag this, the fewer results you're going to get. If you drag it down towards the left, you're going to get more results, but more false positives. So go ahead and adjust that. If you find that you're not getting things grouped together and you're not seeing things that you think should be, go ahead and lower this down, and that's going to give you a different result. And that might actually work better for the faces in your library. Down here, this is for working with your batch face tagging, so merging small batches. If Mylio is finding batches of similar faces that are like 2 here and 4 here and 6 here, it's going to try to merge them together into one larger batch so it can group them together and you can get them tagged much faster. Your minimum batch size, this just says how many pictures do you want to have in a batch. I actually like to keep this down a little lower, so my batch size can be like, 5 or 4. I think that gives me a good result. And then this option here is when you see that little drop down below a face, you'll see those 5 names that come up that are the most 5 likely names. And so it gives you those options. And if you want to speed up face tagging, turn this on, and then you can use your keyboard and just hit 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, the number that corresponds next to that name, and it'll go ahead and apply that name to the image. So that's kind of an overview of what we have as far as our facial recognition settings. I think that one that adjusts the AI sensitivity is probably the most important though. So take a look at that, especially if you're not getting the results that you're expecting. I talked briefly just a moment ago about keyboard shortcuts. These do make the process go a lot faster. In addition to enabling that 1 to 5, you also have the option to do a Command or Control T. That turns on or off that face tagging in the sidebar. So if I go over here and let's just find a picture that has a person in it, grab this one of my camera club. If I want to turn on my facial recognition, I can just do a Command T and that turns it on, and I can do Command T and turn that off. And also that seems to be controlling my screen up there, so it's not grabbing the right one, but that's just going to turn off this icon here on the right. You also have the option when you're looking at a group of people and you want to just go from one to the next, click the tab key on the keyboard, and that's going to jump to the next person so you can go ahead and tag them. So maybe you're looking at a family photo that has 6 or 8 people in it and you want to only tag a couple of them. You need to still maybe research the others. Click the tab key on the keyboard and it's going to jump to the next person. And Shift Tab will do the exact opposite. It'll go to the previous person. So just a few shortcuts that you can check out. If you'd like to know more about keyboard shortcuts in Mylio, we have a ton of them. If you go to the manual, there is an entire section down towards the bottom. So if you're looking through the table of contents, it's right above the appendix and I think right above the help section. There is an entire section with all of our keyboard shortcuts. So make sure you check that out. All right. So as you're going through and tagging people, you're going to come across people that you don't know or that you just simply don't want to tag. So when you're tagging somebody, let me go ahead and jump back over here into the app. I'm going to go here to my people view, go into that untagged, and let's see here. This one here, this is obviously a landscape. Mylio is seeing a face in there somewhere. I'm not entirely sure where. I don't want to add a name to that. I can simply just click ignore, and that's going to take it out of my list and ignore whatever it recognized as a face in there. If that was by mistake and later on you've ignored something, but you want to go ahead and tag the pictures that are in there or tag the faces, let's just go into this picture here. I could right click on an image and choose rescan faces. So ignoring something is not a permanent action. You can always go back and rescan, and that's going to give you an option to tag people in that image again. All right. If you have a group image and you only know and care about a couple of people in there, let's say you go to a concert and you take a picture of your friends and you're in the stadium and there's hundreds of thousands of people, you only want to tag those two people. Pick those two faces that you know, and then in the right sidebar, in the info panel, there is a button here to ignore untagged faces. So once you've tagged the people that you want to tag, you can click this button and it will ignore everyone else in the picture. I think that's super, super helpful. The last thing that I want to point out is sometimes there are people that you want to maybe remember who they were. For me, this is pretty typical on things. I have pictures from like elementary school and high school and middle school. And there's a few of those people that are worth tagging and I want to have those names listed. But there's a few that I go, those names probably worth remembering. It's good to know who's in the pictures, but I'm probably never going to search for them and I don't need them to show up in my people list. That's where adding that information in your title or description or putting that as a keyword is another alternative. That will still keep that information preserved and in the metadata of that image, but it won't add a person tag and won't show up in the people list in Mylio. All right, formatting names. As you name people, there are a few different things you can consider, and I think consistency, choosing a format and sticking with it is probably the most important. The way that people end up with duplicates and varieties of the same person named in their library, they end up with one person that they're named in there 3 or 4 times with different names, is because you haven't chosen a consistent policy for naming. So what I like to do is I do first name, middle name, and I do that in the first name field. And then I do the birth last name. And then if they have a married last name, I put that in parentheses. If they have multiple marriages, I put those in, one next to each other, and the most recent one is at the end. That's the formatting I've chosen to use. If someone has a nickname that they go by, I also put that in quotes in that first name line. So that's the standard that I've chosen to use. Now, Mylio does have some extra fields. You'll see that I do have a middle name field and a nickname field. These are optional fields that you can enable in Mylio Photos. The reason I don't use them is because they don't get saved to the metadata and they're not searchable. So I found that to be kind of, hopefully in the future they will be searchable and that would make it a lot more useful. But for instance, a lot of the people that I know go by some sort of nickname, whether it's some shortening of their name, Christine becomes Chris. So I would maybe put Chris in the nickname and I go to search Chris and that doesn't come up because only the first name field is searchable. So that's something to keep in mind as you choose whether you want to opt into using those name fields or not. It's completely up to you, but know that they are not searchable and they're not saved to your XMP metadata. So personally, I've chosen not to use them, but I do have them visible so I can demo them. And if you want to use those are in settings, device appearance, and person names. Let me show you where that's at really quick. That's up here in settings and device appearance, and scroll down here to person names. And then you can choose which fields you want to enable and have visible in the people view in Mylio Photos. All right. So let's see what else here. Powerful ways to search. So once you've tagged people in your library, this is where later on, when you're looking for something specific, it becomes really, really easy to find those people. Using dynamic search, which is that search icon here at the top left, you can type in a name and it's going to show up here in the people section. So it's just really quick and easy to find all of the pictures of a specific person. You can also use quick filters, which are in every single view. I'm going to go ahead and go back out of my settings here. And let's just go here to all photos. And I'm going to open up my quick filters here and you'll see that we have by person. And again, all of the people here in my library are named. They're sorted by last name. So I can go ahead and either scroll down and filter by a specific person, or I can even type that in here at the top. And there we go, by person, and I can find all of the pictures of me. So that's just a really quick and easy way to find pictures of people and to be able to navigate your library and make all of that work that you just did very, very useful. Some last minute tips and best practices. I do recommend going through and confirming the AI suggestions regularly. You can let it sit for a while, but You know, the more frequently you do it, the less overwhelming the project is. Usually when you're just getting started, you have tons to do. Once you sort through the bulk of that, go in and just do a little bit every now and again, and that's going to help keep your library more manageable. Start with people that you recognize, your family, your friends, the people who are most important in your life. Don't spend a lot of time trying to tag people that you don't know. You can either ignore them, which tells Mylio, don't put a circle on their face anymore, or just skip it and come back to those people later. Use batch tagging to speed up the process. It makes it a lot more fun, in my opinion. Ignore those irrelevant and unknown faces and make it part of your regular workflow. Just keep in mind, you don't have to tag everybody. It's about the people who matter most because those are the people you're going to be searching for in your library. And so just some last minute key takeaways here. You can find faces from anywhere in your library by clicking that little icon in the right sidebar to turn those circles on faces on or off. You can use the untagged list and batch face tagging to move fast. It's going to be under the tools icon in the left sidebar, and that's where you can choose batch face tagging. Set naming rules for yourself. Keep that consistent format. It's going to make your library a much easier place to organize and to find things. Use those ignore tools. Don't be afraid to ignore faces because if you ignore somebody and you later want to come back to them, you can always click that picture and rescan faces. And then finally, once you're done tagging or you've made significant progress and you're looking for something specific, take advantage of how easy it is to search with dynamic search and using your quick filters to find specific people. With that, I want to go ahead and open up the floor to questions. I've seen a few things pop up in the chat. So we'll go ahead and start there. I know Lori's been adding a lot of links, so thank you so much for that. And perfect. Let me get that off the screen. So we have a question here. I'm on iPad. I go to a batch and it shows a bunch of the same people. How do I select all and assign? I can select, but I can't seem to assign the person that already exists. So if you're on an iPad, it should work just the same as on the phone. You go to a batch and up at the top, if the person who it expects that it is should show at the top and you can just click approve. If it's somebody else, you should be able to click on that field and select somebody else from the list. If you're having trouble with that, if it's not working the way it's supposed to, then I do recommend reaching out to support so they can take a look at that. There might be a little technical glitch going on there, but let's take a look. So if you go into your batch face tagging and we have this particular one, let's say, okay, this is somebody else. I saw that my mom posted in the chat actually that this is Claudia, and I can go ahead and grab her name there. So I just start typing, select her, and that's now given that proper name to that group of people. I didn't have to necessarily go in here and select because in batch tagging, you're only going to be seeing one of those groupings at a time. This one here is my grandmother. So there we go. And that's how that works. So hopefully that gets you moving forward.
Angela.
Yes.
I did find that, but the one thing that didn't is I've got somebody new that's their name's not in there. I've done arrange to select them. Up at the top, it says, who is this? I type that in, but I can't get it to accept it. It even shows the picture over on the right with a question mark.
Interesting. So that almost sounds to me like a bug. I would report that to our support team. So
Okay.
go up to on the iPad, there's this little help icon here.
Yeah.
And you can just say more help options and contact Mylio support.
Okay. Appreciate you.
Thank you so much. All right, on to Linda's question. What is the keyboard shortcut for ignoring the rest of the faces in the photo? Let me jump back here to that slide. I don't remember if there was one for ignoring the rest. Let's see here. I'm not sure that there's I don't think there's a face or a keyboard shortcut for that particular one, unfortunately. So yeah, you'll just have to click that button in the info panel. And from Greg, how are names edited? For example, I want to add or edit a nickname. And if I wound up with multiple names for the same person, how do I merge the less desirable name into the more desirable one? So Greg, when you have a nickname for somebody that you want to add, what I would do here, I'm going to go ahead and exit out of batch face tagging. And I'm going to go into my people view. and click back out of untagged. Give it a second here. So let me go here into my cousin. Open up the info panel, and then you have editable fields here on the side. If that person has a nickname, what I would personally do, you could use the nickname field here, but what I prefer to do is go here into my name field, and I would just add the nickname here in quotations. And then go ahead and tab to the next field. It'll go ahead and save that and add that to that name record. Now, if you end up with multiple people that are, it's the same person, but you have multiple people showing in Mylio, there is not an easy way to merge them. What you'll need to do is, I find the ones, so take, like, let's say you have 2 of them. Whichever one has fewer people tagged or fewer pictures associated with it. So let's say if I had here, this one has 13, this one has 2. I would take the one that has 2, and I would go in there and click on this, and I would rename the person and rename it with the proper spelling. If you have a bunch, there are instructions in the manual for basically you delete that person. You're not deleting the pictures, you're just deleting that tag. Those will all end up back in your untagged, and you retag them using batch face tagging. So there's not a great way to merge them. I hope in the future we have a button that just like you select 2 and it merges them, and that would be beautiful. But for right now, it's a bit more of a manual process. From Thomas, I divided faces into youth and adult. Will this improve accuracy? You know, I've never seen anybody do that. It may actually confuse the AI. The AI is meant and designed to recognize people over the years. So you certainly, I would say it's worth giving a try. I've never tried it, but technically that's not the way it was designed to work. So that might make it a little bit worse. Worth a try though. And then also how to combine face tags for the same face, but different names. I think that was the one we just covered. Combining them is not something that's easy. It's a more manual process. So yeah, I wish I had a better answer for that. When there are 2 people in a picture with equal prominence, how do you know which one the program is focusing on when there are no circles? If there's no circles, then there's no way to, so if you have a picture, 2 people, and you want to see the circles, just click that icon in the sidebar here to turn that on, and that should bring on those circles. If no one's showing up, then Mylio has not recognized any faces there, and then you can use a manual tag to add those faces. And that's something actually we didn't cover in the presentation, probably should have. Adding a manual tag is for when Mylio is not recognizing that there's a face there, or maybe you want to say, okay, I know who this was that was sitting in front of me. I want to have this picture associated with him, but I don't want to, I obviously can't tag a face because Mylio is not going to recognize the back of his head. You can tap and hold on a picture, brings up a square, and you can go ahead and tag that area. This is also great for pet faces because Mylio doesn't automatically recognize animal faces, and that lets you tag people manually. As far as if you have 2 people and those circles are popping up, the one that is highlighted in blue is going to be the one that Mylio is naming at that moment. So if you have 2 that are really close to each other, whichever circle is blue is the one that's highlighted. The ones that are white are going to be the ones that are not selected at that moment. And from Terrence, is there or will there be options for face tagging like a feature of other unique identifiers such as particular bird species or perhaps bridge during construction at various stages? So there already is some object recognition in Mylio Photos. Those are the AI smart tags. So that will recognize actually quite a few different varieties of birds, certain animals. And we are working with our AI person to upgrade and improve those models so more things are recognized and that becomes more accurate. But there already is some work towards that. As far as a specific bridge during construction stages, that is a little bit more iffy. I know that in the future there is talk of adding in models that will recognize certain landmarks, but as far as recognizing a landmark at various stages of construction, that I think would be a little bit more iffy. All right, cool. Address the tagging of the back of the head for Jeannie. Excellent. And more manual tagging. Perfect. So let's see here. Can any aspect of face tagging work on video? Yes. So in the info panel, if you have a video, or this works on a document as well, if you go down here to the people section, there's an option here for other people. You can go ahead and click that plus and choose a person, and that will associate this file with that person's name. Also great for pets. It's the way I do it most of the time, actually, for my pets. And for documents, so like, if you have a historical document about a certain person in your family, you can tag the document this way. And this is what I do for video also. It does not associate with a specific region, so it's not going to put like a square over a face. That's not possible to do in Mylio with a video. But it does put that particular file in that person's collection in the people view. All right, what other questions do you guys have for me today? Excellent questions. All right, well, if there is nothing else, let's go ahead and wrap up. I want to thank you guys all for being here today. We will be back next week for live Q&A on Tuesday and Thursday. Bring your questions. It doesn't matter if you are brand new to Mylio Photos and you have, what you see is a very simple question, or you've been with us for a very long time and you have a highly technical question. Everybody is welcome, and I love seeing each and every one of you there. Those sessions are a lot of fun and really make me think through my own workflow as well, because you guys bring some very interesting scenarios. Friday next week, we will have coffee break again, and we'll be talking about the info panel, which is this big old panel here on the side. We'll talk about the family history view versus the regular view and all of the different options that are there, and just give you a better understanding of what you can do with that area in Mylio Photos. With that, I want to wish you guys a wonderful rest of your Friday. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you next time. Bye, everyone.